this video, we're going to be talking about Shabbos. Any laws regarding Shabbos, such as cooking, what you do on Shabbos, and any other questions that we've received in the past.
So, just a general overview, as most people already know, driving, using phones, technology in general is a no.
Anything that you manipulate technology
Exactly.
is a no.
Electricity in general is a no. And for that, the reason behind that is, as Torah says, that on Shabbos we shouldn't light fires or do any work, and obviously we don't light fires anymore, but so that has been applied to using electricity, because our electricity is equivalent to light, to a fire in the older times. That's good.
Because it's like you're closing the circuit now, which would be the flame, and that also represents the flame of you sparking a fire, but which we'll cover soon in a few minutes.
Exactly. So you still can't light a fire. So the last time you'll be lighting a fire before Shabbos is
A few
a
minutes
woman
before.
lighting Shabbos candles, benching licht, but that's obviously before Shabbos. In general, what I get a lot is cooking on Shabbos. So cooking on Shabbos is not allowed. You're not allowed to eat food that was made on Shabbos. So a lot of shuls, they have, or even events that are held on Shabbos, they have
Food that
kiddushes, obviously.
Yeah, kiddush.
And so people are like, well, where does this food come from? How is it still warm, etc., etc. But the answer is, it was made before Shabbos, and it was maintained in a hot area, and it was not made on Shabbos, because it's not allowed to be made. We're not allowed to consume food that was made on Shabbos.
And any food that was made on Shabbos is specifically prohibited. You're not supposed to consume it even after Shabbos, because it was cooked on the holy day, and that's prohibited. Now, in reference to keeping it warm, maybe we should talk about that briefly. For events, they usually have convection ovens, or it's usually in a commercial kitchen, or some in the home. You might have a crock pot, or you might have a hot plate on to maintain the heat of the food, just to keep it warm for at least until the next day. And sometimes you might have a cold meal, but it's not the end of the world. A cold meal won't hurt you. It might not have the best flavor, or it might not feel nice in your mouth, but food is food. And for big events, they might have bigger ovens, convection ovens, or sometimes just wrapped in aluminum foil. That sometimes can help.
Yeah.
And coffee. I'm a big coffee guy. Since we can't cook on Shabbos, what do we do? So we either have warm water that's in what are those things called? Like a water jug that's plugged into the outlet, and it's been on before Shabbos, so it's plugged in before, and it's already warming up the water, and that should, in theory, keep the water warm throughout all of Shabbos. And what we do is we take the instant coffee, because you're not allowed to brew coffee on Shabbos, because it's the process of making food. So what we do, take the cup, here's the coffee, you pour the coffee into a cup. We use a total of 3 cups sometimes, depending upon what you're putting into the coffee. The instant coffee goes into 1 cup, the other cup will be used for the water, and another cup will be used for sugar.
No, sugar can go with the instant coffee.
Okay, so sugar can go inside the instant coffee. I usually don't put sugar in my coffee, so I only use 2 cups, and the instant coffee in 1 cup, the water in another cup. We pour the cup of water into the instant coffee cup, and from there we stir, and that's how you drink coffee.
We can put a video in the description of a Jewish couple that they made a video showing how they make coffee on Shabbos. So that, like, a visual description will probably be easier than just a verbal description. But that being said, a lot of people ask, like, the term Shabbos goy. There are a lot of, like, babysitters that come for Shabbos, or just helpers at shuls, or even just for families. And the question is how are they letting the goy or the non-Jew do the work for them? The answer is we're not allowed to ask a Jew, even a non-religious Jew. You're not allowed to ask. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to make any Jew violate any of the mitzvahs. So even if they're not religious, it's a no. But if they're not Jewish, we are not allowed to ask them directly. So we can't be like, hey, turn on the light. No, that's not allowed. Because then you're basically commanding them and they're doing the work for you. Which there are ways around it, but the general way to do it is like, it's pretty dark in here. And usually like if they've already been around Jewish families and they'll understand like, okay, let me go turn on the light. So in that case, it's allowed. But just saying, hey, turn on the light, not allowed.
And you're at their own will. If they don't want to do it at that exact moment, it is what it is.
You
if they
can't
turn it on
complain
later,
about
exactly. And now we'll talk. Maybe we'll cover this in a later video, but we won't talk about maybe if you have a company and how if you can have it open on Shabbos or not. We'll talk about that in another video. What else should we cover?
We can put a link in the description of the 30. It's called the 39 malachas, which is the 39 prohibitions of Shabbos. We can put them in the link description below because it's a lot to cover. And obviously, you can leave any questions in the comments. We'll be more than happy to answer. Or of course, reach out to your local Chabad rabbi or rebbitzin.
They'll be more than happy to
answer any questions. But
that's the summary of food.
That's the basics of the basics. There are many halachas or there's many Jewish law that cover everything, and just let us know what you guys are interested in learning. Another prohibition of Shabbos is carrying. We are not allowed to carry, and actually, in last week's portion which was Bishalach, which we see about the Jews in Egypt, Mitzrayim, relying on Hashem to give them manna every day. The Torah says that Hashem gave all the Jews double portion before Shabbos on Fridays. With that, our sages, our great rabbis have said, this is proof that says Hashem does not want us to carry stuff because we would then have to go collect the fruit. And that's another prohibition of picking fruit from trees and
harvesting.
Harvesting is another prohibition of Shabbos. So in last week's parsha, it shows us that carrying is not allowed, and also of harvesting fruits.
But you can, in referencing of carrying, you can carry inside of your own home. You just can't, you can't carry something once you step outside of your home, unless you have an eruv, which just means it's an enclosed area or an extension of your home. An extension of your home. And eruv can be a little bit complicated, but in simple terms, if you have a backyard that is enclosed with a fence, that's an eruv. You're good. You can carry something into your backyard. As long as that eruv is not, so if there's a door on that gate, as long as that gate is closed, it's still a closed eruv. But if that gate is open, you cannot carry anything outside now. As long as that gate stays closed, you're all good to carry something outside.
Same goes with the prohibition of ripping, tearing. So a lot of people before Shabbos, they'll rip paper towels or toilet paper and leave it in the bathroom or in the kitchen. And a lot of people will just leave tissue paper as well. But there is halacha in the Shulchan Aruch Harav that says that if there is no toilet paper in the bathroom, obviously it's for obvious reasons, you are allowed to rip toilet paper, just that you should rip it not on the lines, not on the pre-cut lines. The only case where not the only case, but the obvious case that is absolutely prohibited is ripping words. So if you see on like many packages, like Jewish packages, like wine bottles, for example, they'll have like even like a Shabbos tear thing. So, or they'll have like no words on it, so that you'll be able to open that on Shabbos.
big one?
That's all. Huh?
What's a big one that mommy always talks about or always questions?
Cooking.
Preparing. In terms of going back to cooking, you can prepare, if as long as the food is prepared, as in it's cooked before Shabbos, you can plate it. And that's what I mean by preparing. So if you have cholent or rice and some vegetables, and that's in your crock pot, you can take your plate, of course, depending upon if you're having cholent. If it's a meat cholent, you would use a fleshig plate, and you can still take that rice, that cholent, and those vegetables and put it on that plate. That is okay. That is okay and is not considered any violation because that food was already cooked and all you're doing is preparing, and you're doing it for the sake of the Shabbos day. Now, that doesn't mean you can't. Oh, I don't have food prepared. What do I do? That doesn't mean you can't cook. You can't cook for food, but that just means that you'd have to find another snack that's around the house. That's not maybe like a fruit or a vegetable. You just can't cook anything else, like an egg or something. And
Making sandwiches or like tossing salad is all okay.
it's all bingo. And same thing with cereal. You're not cereal, or it's not making. You're just taking two ingredients, combining. It's like a sandwich.
If you guys want to learn more just about the basics of Jewish law, I recommend you read the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You learn from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch because it's the simplified version of Jewish law. If you go by Chabad and you want to, if you go by Chabad halacha, or
Not necessarily Chabad.
if you go by, if you want to go by the Alter Rebbe's, the first Chabad Rebbe's interpretation, then you should learn from the Shulchan Aruch Harav. But the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is the condensation of all interpretations of the Shulchan Aruch made by the rabbis, and condensed into one. And like, if you want to learn more and according to your tradition, you should look into it and see which one would go according to your minhag or tradition to learn from.
And there are plenty of other sources online on Chabad's website, and of course we'll always have a description or a link to the description in the comments below. And they recently did actually put the Shulchan Aruch
Shulchan Aruch Harav is now completely
on Chabad in PDF version. You just got to click back in different PDF files, but it's useful when you need to learn.